Yesterday was Thanksgiving for people in the US, and it made me very curious. And it invoked a few questions that I've just been pondering and wondering about, which allowed me to have a greater appreciation for my life, the things that I'm experiencing, and just being here on this earth. And I wanted to share them with you because I found them quite interesting and counterintuitive. I've sort of developed this alternate perspective on gratitude that I think isn't talked about very often, but it's helped me greatly with being able to not just be grateful, but to remain in that state for much longer than repeating a few affirmations, which does help. But I wanted to find a very sustainable way to continuously be grateful without much willpower or continually strenuous manual effort. And when I mean manual effort, I mean constantly repeating to myself, oh, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for this. And this is something I talk about quite frequently in my book and in other videos as well, where if we if we continually need to rely on thinking in order to be something, it's very exhausting. For example, if the only time that we're grateful is when we're repeating to ourselves, I'm grateful for this food, I'm grateful for this air, I'm grateful for this earth, all we're doing then is focusing so much on the words themselves, the concept of what we're grateful for versus truly experiencing what we're grateful for. And then I ask myself, is it possible, or is it only true that I'm grateful when I'm repeating to myself, I'm grateful for this thing? And I found out that I'm actually grateful for whatever it is before I tell myself I'm grateful for it. And that's a very interesting concept because I didn't think that was possible. And I thought that I had to go around this earth repeating to myself all the things that I'm grateful for in order to feel gratitude. But it's not true. And then that got me curious and questioning, so what is gratitude then? If it's not just thinking about the thing that I'm grateful for. And I started to realize that, well, in a traditional sense, gratitude, let's just break it down from how most of us perceive gratitude, which is, I would say it's an appreciation for something specific. But beyond the appreciation, I realized that gratitude is actually a default state that we are in when we let go of our thinking. It's when we're fully in the moment and our awareness is completely in the present moment as opposed to somewhere else. It's not thinking about what we could have been doing or should have been doing or any of those things. True and pure gratitude is full awareness of this moment that we're experiencing right now. And yes, we can be grateful for the things that we do have by thinking about it. Let's say, oh, I'm so grateful for my, let's say, past, or I'm grateful for my parents, or I'm grateful for my wife and all these things, or maybe things that happened. But those things aren't happening right now. And although it can help us invoke that feeling of gratitude, there's a difference between being fully present now and living this moment with that gratitude, as opposed to needing to rely on something in the past to feel that gratitude, essentially, for that short period of time that you're thinking about it. So as I began exploring this topic more, I really began to experience what it truly meant to me, what gratitude was to me. And I found out for myself that it doesn't help quite much to compare what I have with or with other people that don't. And I found that to be a very popular mechanism of gratitude, which is, oh, you should be grateful for the house that you're living in or the food that you have because other people don't have it. And while that can work to a certain extent, I don't necessarily believe that we need to compare what we have with someone else that doesn't have it to feel grateful. I feel like that's a little bit. I feel like that's doing other people a disservice at the same time as well, because who's to say that other people who don't have what we have aren't grateful for what they have, already. And who's to say that we could be more grateful for them or more grateful than them? And it's kind of like comparing things. Let's say you're out in the wild and I came across this beautiful flower or a rose. And if it were true that I had to compare it to something else, I would say I wouldn't be able to truly appreciate the beauty of what it is without holding another flower next to it or an uglier flower next to it and saying, oh, this flower that I'm looking at now is beautiful and I'm grateful for it only because there's another flower next to it that's not as beautiful, which I don't think is necessarily true. And they both can be beautiful in their own right. And we can be grateful for everything that we have without comparing it to another thing. It's like seeing another human being and only appreciating, let's say I only appreciated my wife because there's other people that don't have a significant other. Like that's not necessarily true. I appreciate her independent of whatever else is going on in the world. And I think that is much closer to a pure portrayal and experience of gratitude than needing to constantly compare to other things. And if we're constantly comparing to other things, that actually opens us up to essentially the opposite, which is we can always be comparing ourselves to people who have more or have a better life, perceivably, and all these things. And so it's a little bit dangerous and a slippery slope to constantly being comparing in order to feel grateful. So what I'm proposing is a sense of gratitude independent of needing to compare or needing to constantly think about it, and a more natural way of gratitude, which is when we let go of thinking, oh, I am so grateful for this because it could have been worse or something like that. When I start to let go of all of the conditions and comparison, I'm finally here and present. And without constantly needing to think about it, I actually appreciate it for what it truly is without needing to rely on something else to sort of tell me that I need to be grateful for this thing. And I think that's it's much closer to a pure form of love in itself. And I think gratitude comes from love, really. And when I tried to break down what gratitude was, it was very difficult to pinpoint it. But the closest thing I've come to realize what it is just a pure sense of love for something and to experience it fully without any judgment, without any preconceived notions, without any conditioning. And when I began to bring someone to mind or something in mind that I wanted to be grateful for, the more that I focused my attention and energy and awareness around it, the more grateful I became for it without needing to constantly justify why I should be grateful for it. And I truly believe that by default, we're grateful for things. It's only when we're too caught up in our minds that we lose sight of that natural state of gratitude we have for everything. Just look at how kids and children navigate the world. They're in a constant state of awe and wonder as they're going about life, as they're going in nature, as they're playing and imagining all these things. They're in that state because they're not caught up with thinking. They're not caught up with what am I going to do tomorrow? What are the chores or what are the things that I need to do? And without all of that baggage of thinking, we are naturally grateful. So a practice that I love doing is just to now just, if I want to be grateful for something, I let go of any thinking or judgment about the thing that I want to be grateful for. And let's say it's this food or whatever it is. I don't have to say, oh, I'm so grateful for this food because other people don't have this food. I now approach it with this sense of pure presence and just eating the food and fully experiencing just how beautiful it actually is. The taste, the smell, how it satiates me. And without any of the other baggage of comparison and judgment, that to me is gratitude. That presence that I have, that awareness that I have for whatever is right in front of me becomes gratitude. And it comes from a place of It comes from love, is really what it is. Um, and I think that's what creates the most amazing form of gratitude there is. So I hope that helps you a little bit and allows you to experience gratitude in a new way than what we were kind of brought up to believe, or what other people have told us what gratitude is. So I invite you to question a lot of these things with me and to ask yourself, what does gratitude mean to you? What is gratitude? And what are different ways that you can bring more gratitude into your life, that in a sustainable way? And you can explore some of the topics and some of the modalities that I mentioned in this video and to see how it works for you. And you can always come back and comment down below what you experience. And that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for being with me.